SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
State Treasurer David McRae has put hundreds of millions back into the hands of Mississippi's citizens, expanding the state's affordable college and career savings program and also returning record amounts of unclaimed money. Check out how Treasurer David McRae's office can help you, your business, or your organization. Treasury.ms.gov.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C Spire. Power your home or business with C Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C Spire. C Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday Super Talk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning there, Rhino.
Howdy, howdy.
Why do the Democrats love crime and criminals?
Because they live in La La Land and they reject the reality that is right in front of their faces.
Ding, 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 ding. The mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, says, and I quote, "There's no crime crisis in Chicago." You know how many security personnel he has to protect his person?
I've seen varying reports anywhere from 75 to 175 uniformed officers.
150, latest report. So right in the middle of the range you just provided. 150. Does the president have that many? I'm not sure.
I don't think Kim Jong-un has that many, and he's notoriously paranoid.
That's true. And by the way, it's 24/7 for the mayor of Chicago. Oh, but there's no crime crisis. Pay no attention to what Donald Trump and Republicans and his townspeople, Chicagoans, are telling him. We're tired of the crime. We're tired of constantly living in fear. And over the past weekend, weren't there like 20 murders or something? It's some insane amount.
Maybe it's always double digits. So
it's every weekend, right?
Yeah,
it's double
some
digits.
are 50, 60. Bad weekends are higher. I guess it was a good weekend that it was so low.
Oh, yeah, low. They're just oblivious to reality, to fact, to truth, and they're wondering why they're sucking in the polls, why they're losing support. They got no leadership, a vacuum of leadership. Who the hell's the leader in the Democrat Party? Pete Buttigieg? AOC? The octogenarian Bernie Sanders?
That's the funny part of all of it is they're all kind of jockeying.
Yeah.
And none of them are really landing with very much.
I just don't get it.
Gavin Newsom's gotten the most traction, but he also probably has the most baggage.
Well, I apologize for leaving him out of the mix there among those who are vying for the mantle of leadership. But you can't solve a problem unless you first acknowledge it, right? Isn't one of the best examples of that of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? You first got to admit, isn't that what like the first thing they make you do? Hey, my name is so-and-so and I am an alcoholic. You have to acknowledge it. It doesn't matter what the problem is. If you don't acknowledge and accept the reality of the problem, you sure as hell aren't going to make any headway in fixing it. And that's what's going on with crime with these oblivious Democrats. we got to give a little props to the mayor of Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, Muriel Bowers, who was, I think, one of the first to jump all over the BLM nonsense in the wake of the George Floyd incident by painting, right, a huge, in the middle of some busy street, huge sign, if you will, on the street, Black Lives Matter, right? Remember that?
Yeah, the street mural.
Unbelievable. But now she's saying, it turns out these National Guard people in camo, just their mere presence on the streets of the nation's capital seems to be deterring crime. Imagine that. Unbelievable. So the president says this is enough, and now he's threatening. That's the wrong word. He's proposing, suggesting, indicating. It's really not a threat. He might call it a threat. I'm going to be a little more diplomatic in sending in troops and essentially replicating what happened in Washington in Chicago. He's talking about doing that.
There's just one problem, though.
What's that?
Like the D.C. charter and the agreement that was set up during the foundation of D.C. allowed for a federal takeover of D.C.
That's right. And
there are no such provisions for the federal government to legally take over a U.S. city.
You're right. And I would never be in favor of any action on the part of the president or anybody in this country that conflicts with law or the Constitution. Despite how practical, how wise I may think that decision or action may be. I just think you have to be consistent in that respect. But you know what? The mere threat of it, you would think would perhaps encourage some action on the part of the mayor. But he's defiant about it. No, there's no crime crisis here.
What I can't figure out is why Democrats aren't going for the, hey, you can't do that, versus the there's no crime.
I agree.
Like, you're just lying when you say there's no crime, when you can literally just point to the fact that that's not legal.
Because you know this, that anything that appears that they're being in compliance with, in support of our law, our framing foundation, our Constitution, you know how much they loathe that. I really do think that's the case. And I think the other thing is, because admitting there's a crime crisis violates, I think breaches one of the pillars of their platform. And sadly, that's race. I mean, it's just race at any cost. No matter what, it's race. It's the same thing with the goofy mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina, with this horrific incident with this criminal who brutally stabbed a white Ukrainian female and on a bus.
A war refugee.
That's right. Was in this country based on asylum and based on escaping the war in the war-torn region there of Ukraine and Russia, and just minding her business on a bus. And she immediately says, oh, it's because we don't have enough mental health services, and there's a housing crisis. And by the way, it's useless to arrest this individual. We can't arrest our way out of this. I mean, that's how
she's half right. You can't just arrest your way out of it, because that dude got arrested 14 times and let go.
That's absolutely true.
You have to arrest and then prosecute and then punish.
But you know, if she had her druthers, there would be no arrest. Now, once again, we have to acknowledge, if the race roles were reversed, oh my gosh, she'd be screaming from the mountaintops, get that person off the streets immediately. It's a white male.
It wouldn't have taken 2 weeks to reach the zeitgeist.
That's correct. I don't know. This, as you can tell, it bothered me. It bothers me that America's cities, I've been to Chicago a bunch. Man, it's a fantastic city. Los Angeles, these are all great cities, great American cities, built by hard-working, I'm going to borrow their phrase, hard-working Americans. Make no mistake, lots of risk-taking and capitalism. You look at the skyline of New York. What built New York? Capitalism? They're oblivious to that. And what are they about to elect?
That's why bin Laden attacked the trade towers.
Correct. Exactly. That's second-order thinking. The underlying reason is we hate your system because it made you rich. And we can't adopt that system here because only I, Osama bin Laden, am entitled to be rich. The rest of you just eat cake. You're in my way. Be gone with you. It was attacking the World Trade Center was what it symbolizes. Capitalism, free enterprise, private transactions. They hate that. The Democrats do in this country, too. And they're about to elect this lunatic communist. I'm just going to say it. This guy's a communist. This Zoran Mandami, if he had his druthers, he would eliminate a common distinction, primary distinction between socialism and communism. Is in communism, not only does the state control the economy, pretty much private property rights are limited, if not non-existent. This guy doesn't believe in private property rights.
It's our property, comrade.
Exactly right. He doesn't believe in private property rights. I'm convinced of that. He wants to seize all the property and have it under the control of the government. We got Douglas Carswell from Center for Public Policy at 11:05 and Senator Jeremy England at 12:05.
Patriotism.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
We're rolling.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
Awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, I had to get it out of my system. I can't comprehend why. And the president says it too. It's like they like crime. Once again, it's because of this strict adherence they have to race and just this ideology of race. And now, because it seems like we got more transgender individuals engaged in these horrific crimes, mass shootings, etc. A couple of weeks ago in Minneapolis at the Annunciation Catholic School. I think that's why. Oh, that's okay. It's a training. Right? We looked the other way.
That's why there were trans activists outside the actual church protesting the fact that the shooter has been dead named and misgendered.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So that's more important, takes precedence over human life, right?
Welcome to the loony left.
That's incredible. If it doesn't fit their little narrative, and what I mean by that is whoever the parties are involved, they look more carefully and closely and are more concerned about their personal, physical, and in this case, mental attributes, because this transgender stuff is a mental thing. That's not a physical thing. It's not like the color of your skin. You're born with that. Or your nationality, or your ethnicity, etc. Your biological sex. Not to be confused with your made-up identified gender. And they're all about that. This is why they're losing their stroke with the American people, because even people who identify as Democrats say, yeah, it's too much. Oh, crazy James Carville, he's wearing them out about it, isn't he? Every time he
He's
does
begging them to drop all this
he
crap.
really is. And
Because he sees it as the albatross around their neck.
it cannot gain you the political clout and power that they seek. This is how sick and crazy all that stuff is. They are so, and then from an economic perspective, it's real simple. All they care to do is just go take more money off rich people. That's it. That's their economic plan. As I've said so many times before, and I think it bears repeating, they never produce and present a plan to grow the size of the economic pie. It's always, let's recut it. Take from this group, give to that group. They don't even understand the concept of economic growth, of prosperity, of wealth creation, only wealth redistribution.
Well, if they didn't understand wealth creation, how did so many of them wind up so wealthy?
That is so true. And which has always amazed me
Almost
is
like
that
they're willing to lie to their voters for votes.
big time. And it always amazes me.
They're so virtuous.
I know, and that's what's so
They
disgusting.
would never. Liz Warren's never told a lie.
Oh my gosh.
Bernie Sanders has never lied to people. Obama definitely never lied.
And he is, of course, he's scolding, is Bernie Sanders, the Democrats in New York, for not providing full-throated endorsement and support for Zoran Mamdani. He absolutely castigated them at some goofy little event they had over the weekend. You saw that. He's on the stage. What's really bothers me is not him on the stage and the craziness that comes out of his mouth. It's the people in the audience that are clapping for this crap. I will never concede that they've won, but I am worried that our colleges are poisoning our young people with this nonsense of how virtuous socialism is. So you know what happens is we never, to our young people, talk about the risks and the drawbacks and the downside of this economic system. Never. It's always how virtuous it is and how attractive it is. They just, this idea that, oh, the government's going to step in and make my house affordable? Yay, that's what I want, right? I mean, that's what they're selling without understanding.
Unless it's the government deporting the millions of illegals that have driven house pricing up to make it more affordable. Then they're going to cry bloody murder.
No doubt. They are occupying our houses, lowering our wages, ruining our schools, filling up our hospitals, raising our taxes. That's what you get when your borders are wide-ass open. That's what we're experiencing right now. And the president, thank God. Can you imagine if it had been another 4 years of what you and I got accustomed to on a daily basis? While you and I were talking, I'd be watching on the screen, and it'd be a video, live video of the border, and for as far as you could see in the view of the camera were caravans of illegals crossing over. And now we're learning all sorts of horrific information about children and how children, I mean, like infants, were raped by these subhumans. I can't even comprehend it. Where did this evil come from? And that's what Biden and the Democrats think is good. They facilitated this. They are the blame for it.
Gain.
All for political gain. 100% for political gain. They are so eaten up with this social garbage. I'm on a tear about it because it's unfortunately infecting many of our young people that I don't think really know why they're so supportive of this. They're able to, I give it to them, they're great salespeople. They're able to sell it in some way that sounds so attractive, so positive, and they're eating it up. It's sick. Now, full disclosure, little personal privilege here. I'm headed to Ole Miss tonight to speak to the Young Americans for Liberty. And I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to make it a little different. My remarks tonight, and I'm super pleased and honored that they've invited me. I'm going to make it a little interactive. And I'm going to start by, don't want to give away the whole speech here, by these recent polls that show the rise in the popularity of socialism and the decline in the popularity of capitalism, and just ask them what they think about that. Now, understanding these are college-age kids, I'm curious. What do they know? What are they hearing? How do they feel about this situation? That's what bugs me. And there's no doubt, Rhino, that what we're seeing in New York, you can attribute that to a great extent to the garbage coming from professors in our universities. That's where a lot of that support's coming from. There's no doubt. And you can see them all around Mondami, and like I've said before, they're all neatly coiffed, and they got expensive clothes on, and the latest devices, and $1,000 purses, and makeup, and all that crap. $1,000 glasses. You bought glasses
but
lately.
They don't want to
expensive.
spend their money helping people.
That's right.
They want to spend your money helping people.
That's exactly right. And look, there's something that we have to acknowledge, that a great deal of it is because recent reports indicate 70% of potential home buyers are priced out of the market right now. Just it's unaffordable.
I quit looking.
$400,000 for in the country, not in Mississippi, of course. It's lower. At that median price of a home, $400,000. That means half are below and half are above that. And then the interest rates are high. Of course, the cost of construction is up. And this all got started because we were led astray by some idiots on this COVID crap. That's what got it all going. And the immediate initial reaction was, let's pour money into the economy. And that started in 20. We have to be honest about that.
And the more that comes out, the more it looks like it was a big operation to CYA from Dr. Fauci.
No doubt about it. He you could almost contend, single-handedly, he drove the policy. He advised on what was the economic policy that left us in this situation today. Biden, as I've said many times, for political gain, as soon as he got in office, had to pass that stupid American Rescue Plan. I honestly think that we would have gotten through some moderate inflation. It would have stabilized, but no, he had to put his mark on the economy. No way he could possibly accept that just leave it alone. It's getting back to normal. When Trump left office, he had to do something, and his doing something was the $1.9 trillion of helicopter money on an economy that was coming out of a downturn. That's a recipe for stupid permanent inflation. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Attention, adoring fans! It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
CC in Senatobia on the C Spire text line. That's 601-879-4395. Says they have realized there's very little repercussion for their lies, so they have embraced lying. And I will tell you that I hear you, CC. About half of it's lies, and half of it they're just stupid and don't really know. I think there are many who truly do believe that, and again, haven't done their homework, haven't thought through the second order thinking, as you like to say, that this really would be a better economic system, talking about central planning socialism. They really believe that.
Perfect example occurred in the last, 12 or so hours, maybe even less than that, about how much lies take up the language of the left. There was scuttlebutt that there was an attack on the flotilla that Greta Thunberg is on, fighting for the rights of Gazans and Hamas. And all the people started running with, oh, it must have been Israel. Israel attacked the flotilla. Or, no, it must have been this or that. Or, no, it was some idiot on the flotilla, tried to fire a flare. It went straight up and came right back down on their boat.
Well, I just saw some footage here in the studio showing Greta moving about on the vessel. I wonder what that was all about. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. They so desperately want that to be the truth. They really do.
Because they are allergic to any form of accountability for their own actions.
I think it's because they put politics, power, control over and above everything. Whatever it takes attitude. So if something bad has to happen and the perpetrator fits the profile that they want it to, that confers power to them, then they support it. It's like they're celebrating. And they're so disappointed. Shoot, that's not, I'm telling you, they're high-fiving in the background until they find out.
That's why it was okay to go to protests and stand shoulder to shoulder while everyone was supposed to be 6 foot apart.
That's exactly right. And remember the various Biden bureaucrats issuing all sorts of statements about, yeah, but this cause, it just takes priority over our health. They're telling us on the one hand, you better stay 6 feet apart, and wear like a plastic bag on your body to avoid the COVID. But if you're out protesting,
you better limit the number of people at that funeral or that wedding, but go right ahead. Have thousands at the protest.
They literally did make statements where they said that's a higher priority. That I'm paraphrasing it a bit, but that was the message. Yeah, this is so important. It's okay to violate our own standards. It's insane. They really do believe that. And when these, I believe, young folks get filled up with all this crap about the virtues of socialism, the one thing that those proponents don't mention is how capitalism is more akin to freedom and free enterprise. That's why we call it that. Whereas socialism is more about surrendering your freedom. They don't want that. They just want your money. That's why I say you really don't want socialism. What you want is what I call transferism. You want all of everybody else's assets, but you don't want to cede any freedom. But when you put government in charge of that redistribution and running grocery stores, for example, as Mamdani proposes, that's exactly what you're doing. You're surrendering. You're relinquishing your freedom. They don't acknowledge, was it Tim Kaine, right? The senator? You saw this from Virginia.
Yeah, it was him versus Ted Cruz.
Oh, my gosh. And he basically says the idea, as is enshrined in the Declaration of Independence, the thing Joe Biden never could say, that our rights come from our Creator. We are endowed with those rights, meaning they're innate. Nobody has to create them, produce them, take any action to make them available to you. No, they come from our Creator. As soon as you're created, you have these rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the government's responsibility is to protect those rights. And Kaine said, oh no, that belief is actually consistent with the leadership in Iran or some crap like that. That's what a U.S. senator says. How could you be serving in the United States Senate if you don't accept the words in the Declaration of Independence, the founding document of the country? Am I getting too bent out of shape about this?
No.
You're a U.S. senator. You ought to be championing that. You ought to have a damn thing memorized. And you ought to be telling people how great it is and how privileged we are to live in this country because we accept and acknowledge that our rights come from our Creator. Of course, the problem is they don't acknowledge that there's a Creator. Oh, my gosh. That just bothers me that a U.S. senator would equate our founding documents to a murderous regime that controls his people like they're meat.
Well, the irony is they're perfectly fine with your belief in a creator if you believe the creator is Allah or Krishna.
Well, that's true. But that's what he's trying to say here, is that, oh, yeah, your rights come from Allah, right? That's what they believe. But their idea of rights, they don't include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What happens to a gay person? What kind of liberty do they have in that country?
They have the liberty to be thrown from a roof or stoned.
That's what I thought. And, liberty also means you don't go attack innocent people because you want something they have that they legitimately earned. And look, I'm proud. You seeing what's going on in Israel. I'm serious. The only way to fix that problem is just get rid of all of them. I don't think there's any way to reform them because the leaders won't reform. They won't express, we need reform. I know.
Well, they will if you give them lots and lots of money, and then they'll just go back on it within 6 months to a year.
Total shakedown.
I mean, I remember sitting in school, and the teacher thought it was very important that we watch Bill Clinton and Yasser Arafat, and I forget the prime minister from Israel's name, having the peace conference. Yeah, how much peace have we had since then?
That was wasn't gold in my ear, was it?
No, that was back in the
that was before
70s.
Before time. Yeah, Clinton, of course, the 90s. I'm trying to think of who it was. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. But yeah, he was trying to get them together.
And Yasser Arafat was radical could be.
Yeah, no doubt. On the C Spire text line, yep, the communist is elected mayor of New York City. I believe we will see the beginning of the old movie Escape from New York City take place. That's Ike from Saltillo that sends that to us. Yeah, the very people that they want to tax. And he in a little interview talking about Zoran Mondami, I can't remember who was interviewing him yesterday, said, yeah, we're going to give all this stuff away. We're just going to tax the billionaires to get that. New York, of course, home to lots of billionaires because of capitalism.
You're saying Golda Meir just sent my brain in a rabbit hole. It's like, wait, they didn't learn from the screw-ups of the Munich Olympics.
That is so true.
And how that entire, Black September was the terrorist organization. It got pretty much wiped off the face of the planet. It took them a couple decades to get the last few of them, but they didn't stop.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
What makes them think they're going to stop after you attacked a music fest full of peaceful people?
Yep.
We're not talking about 11 athletes.
Yeah, it was instructive, and it doesn't seem like that we heeded the instructions. Well, they gave us the books, we ate the pages. Yeah, unbelievable. And it's not just New York. You're seeing this nutcase in Minneapolis, Minnesota, also appears to be poised to win the mayor's seat there. And it's across the country, and I still maintain it's this wave that was induced in the colleges. I mean, the colleges have always had a lot of influence, of course, over our young people. And young people at that age are still trying to figure it out. The problem is they only get one side of everything. It's totally tainted and skewed to those professors' line of thinking.
To the point where if you do have conservative thought, you have to hide it or mask it so that you can actually pass.
And that is no doubt about it. And I've heard that from students right here in the state of Mississippi who have said there are certain classes.
It's been parsed out in surveys.
That's right. Certain classes, certain professors, that if they know your leanings, your philosophy, they will grade against you. That's completely wrong. That's socialism for you there. That's exactly what that is. They use crime and violence as a tool to control, says CJ in the Delta. Agree. Casey in Ocean Springs says, educators promote the idea that capitalism is bad, yet here in Mississippi, our educators' PERS is invested in the stock market, which relies on capitalism. Great point, Casey. So true. That's why I'm telling you. It's transferism they want.
Bernie Sanders hasn't sold one of his 3 houses to help fund the poor, has he?
That's exactly right. We're stepping aside for a break. We got another segment in this hour, and then it's Douglas Carswell with the Mississippi Center for Public Policy.
Are you looking for someone to transport your heavy equipment? Call SS, we got you covered.
You can trust Southeastern Services and our experienced professionals to haul and operate your equipment. You're always in good hands with us. Give us a call today, 601-292-9932.
Family Termite is a proud VIP sponsor of the Handyman Show on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Whether you're a proud DIYer or a seasoned veteran, Mississippi's handyman Buddy Slowick has the answers to your home improvement questions each Saturday from 10 till noon.
You already know that Madison Cellars is Madison's favorite place to buy wine and spirits since 1988. On Highway 51 in the Madison Station Shopping Center, Madison Cellars has a hometown feel with a big city selection. Do you have a question about which wine to serve with a certain dish? Call 601-856-0931 and let their knowledgeable staff help you find the perfect match. Find out more at madisonsellars.net or stop by today. Madison Cellars on Highway 51 in the Madison Station Shopping Center.
Hey, I'm here with Alex Murray of Auto Innovation.
At Auto Innovation, we want to change your car buying experience. When you're in the market for a quality pre-owned vehicle, please come see us. We want to make friends, not just customers. All eligible vehicles are inspected by a MasterTech mechanic and come with a limited powertrain warranty on us. We are located on Highway 51 in Ridgeland. Come by and see us or check out our inventory online at autoinnovation.net. Let us change your car buying experience.
Auto Innovation, Highway 51 in Ridgeland.
Pure Air Consultants has always been your go-to for reliable and affordable heating and cooling systems, and now we're offering an additional product to avoid the 25 to 30% increase that everyone is talking about. With Day and Night, a Carrier family product, your professionals at Pure Air Consultants can install a reliable heating and cooling system with a 10-year system warranty. Pure Air Consultants and Day and Night, providing ultimate comfort for your home for an affordable price. Call us today for your free quote, 601-939-7420. That's 601-939-7420, or find us online at mypureairconsultants.com.
This is the opening agri-market report. The opening of the New York Cotton Exchange, December cotton was up 16 to 66.37. March cotton up 15 to 68.29. At the Chicago Board of Trade, November soybeans is up a quarter to 10.34 per bushel. January soybeans is down a quarter to 10.52.5 per bushel. December corn is down 1 1/4 to 4.20.5 per bushel. March corn is down a penny to 4.38.5 per bushel. At the Mercantile, October live cattle was down 3.90 to 231.92. December live cattle is down 4.32 to 233.25. October feeders down 8.12 to 351.10. November feeders down 8.80 to 349.32. And at this hour, the Dow Jones is up 67 points, 45,581. I'm Dixon Williams. This is SuperTalk Mississippi Agri News Network.
Hello, I'm Sean Tyndall, Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. Since 2021, Mississippi has seen a 25% reduction in fatalities involving crashes with commercial motor vehicles. Many of those crashes could have been avoided. DPS, through its MHP's Motor Carrier Unit and the Commercial Transportation Enforcement Division, is partnering with Big Rig Truckers to conduct safety checks across our state for the Trooper and Truckers Safety Initiative. The Department of Public Safety and the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration are working together to keep our highways safe for everyone. Thank you, and drive safely.
This is professional ball player and former Mississippi State Bulldog, Jake Mangum. To be a strong team, every player has to be dedicated. Farm Bureau is exactly that. Their dedication to providing me with excellent customer service and competitive rates is outstanding. If you aren't already on the team, it's time to join Farm Bureau. Visit favrates.com for great rates on home and auto insurance, or find a local agent at msfbins.com. Farm Bureau Insurance. Go with the home team.
Sports Talk Mississippi, Magnolia State's #1 sports show. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Come on. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on Super Talk Mississippi.
Okay, did a little research. 2000 Camp David Summit. Clinton involved in that. Yasser Arafat, of course, the Palestinian leader.
I'm thinking about something that happened in the early to mid 90s, like 93.
Oh, okay. When he was first elected. All right. I mean, I remember the 2000 summit. That was a pretty big deal. Yitzhak Was that it? Seems like that was in like 93, 94, something like that. We'll look that up. Interesting. Yeah.
Rabin.
Yeah, that's it.
Rabin.
Yitzhak Rabin. Yep. Got it. Okay. On the C Spire text line, several movies based on Israeli, this is Philip in Walthall County, reaction to Munich 1972. I believe Sword of David was the first, but of course Spielberg's Munich, the Israelis meant it when the phrase was first used, never again. It's in 4 languages. Wow, at the KZ Memorial in Dachau. Appreciate that, Philip. That's interesting. Didn't hear about that. So tell the folks about this recent poll of the Gen Z generation in this country that kind of divides. The questions were the same, but the results show across the demographics, right?
Yeah, the NBC News Decision Desk ran a poll through, I think it was SurveyMonkey, for 18 to 29-year-olds, and they broke it down by sex and by who they voted for in the last presidential election as the dividing factors. And the questions in this part of the poll were about ranking the importance to your personal definition of success. And the differences between men and women and Democrats and Republicans are pretty stark. For example, men who voted for Trump, their most important rating they gave to their personal definition of success was having children at 34%, followed by financial independence at 33% and a fulfilling job and career at 30%. Women who voted for Harris, their top priority in defining their own personal definition of success, over half of them chose a fulfilling job and career. The surprising part is having children came in dead last at 6%. Now, if you flip the political demographics and go to men who voted for Harris, they were even more so worried about defining their personal definition of success as having a fulfilling job and career. 54% of them ranked that their highest, while being grounded spiritually was their least. And then if you look at women who voted for Trump, they value financial independence. About 40% rated that their highest in the personal definition of success, followed by fulfilling job and career and owning their own home.
Interesting.
So there are wildly different goals for the different sexes and the different political parties.
Do you think Kamala Harris is influencing the supporters of her that place having a family, having children down the list when she said, oh, it's climate change. They don't want to bring any children into the world because I guess they know the world's not going to be here to accommodate them, to support them because of climate change? Surely not. Hopefully. That was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. But there is a concern in that to keep the population rolling. I mean, it wasn't too long ago when I was in school, we were worried about overpopulation. And it seemed like that subject came up a lot. I'm talking about when I was in elementary school, in the 70s, high school. But now the concern is the declining birth rate and just propagation of humans. We need about 2.1 as a birth rate to just sustain, to stay level. We're at like 1.5 now. We're underwater with respect to the birth rate. And there are a lot of discussions about how to address that. Of course, one of the things that One Big Beautiful Bill did was the Trump accounts, which are designed to create a bit of a nest egg and then allow that to grow at the time the child is born. That was included in that legislation that just passed, $1,000. I kind of have mixed feelings about that, honestly.
You can also glean from this data that Democrats are way more worried about their feelings than Republicans, because women that voted for Harris ranked having emotional stability their third most important. Men who voted for Harris ranked having emotional stability their fifth most important. Compare that to the Republicans. Men who voted for Trump, having emotional stability came in dead last.
I think
women who voted for Trump having emotional stability came in third from last.
I absolutely believe that is a logical conclusion there. You talk about it all the time of how much they're driven by feelings. In 2023, 1.62 births per woman. We need about 2.1. What's really incredible is how the birth rate is declining in Japan and in Canada, some other countries.
South Korea especially.
Right. Coming right back with Douglas Carswell.
Your of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply, and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays, hour 2 of the program, now live from the Element Well Studios. We welcome Douglas Carswell. He's the president and CEO of the Mississippi Center for Public Policy. Douglas, thanks for coming in. Good to see you.
Good morning, Gerard. Good morning, Mississippi.
Just saw you a couple of weeks ago down in New Orleans at the annual State Policy Network conference, and well attended, as it always is, held down at the Sheraton on Canal Street. And we were just talking offline. I think this is the fourth one I've attended, and they move them around. This is the closest one has been where I could actually drive to it that I recall.
Me too.
But what's neat about that conference is that the policies that your organization promotes and have been promoting for quite some time that are certainly grounded in freedom and free markets and limited government, low taxes, minimal regulation, all the above. When you go to that conference, what you're attending with is a bunch of organizations just that are chasing the same policies, I should say, in all 50 states.
Well, it's a real reminder, isn't it, when you're there, that all the great policy innovations tend to come from the states.
That's right.
Income tax elimination here in Mississippi. You've got school choice in Alabama and Arkansas. You've got deregulation in Texas. It's a real reminder that actually America is the United States, and each state doing things differently means you get these fantastic new ideas. And you said we all tend to do the same thing. We steal from each other, basically. We see what one state does right, and we do it. We see what one state like California does wrong on something like energy, and we don't do it. It's the secret of America's success, and it was lovely to be there. A couple of thousand policy people from different states, and it was really inspiring to listen to and be part of that real energy there. America's going to be in good hands so long as it's got states being able to do their own thing.
It is kind of refreshing, and it's energizing, because sometimes you may feel like you're kind of isolated a bit, and you're maybe out on a limb, and you're trying to push the rope uphill and all that sort of stuff. But you get in the rooms with these people. There's lots of breakout sessions as well, as you well know, of all across the gambit of subject matter. These are really smart people. That's the first thing that I took away when I attended the first one. It was in Atlanta several years ago. These are really smart people. Yeah. They're passionate. They care about what they're doing. They know that their work is making a difference. They get great satisfaction out of that. But man, they don't stop. They get a little victory, and boom, we keep on going. Yep. And speaking of victories, your organization, the Mississippi Center for Public Policy, was recognized in a big way at the awards dinner, I believe on Wednesday night at the conference. There were 800 people in the room from across the country. You were up on the stage there receiving an award. Tell us about that.
Well, we were one of two organizations up on the stage. The other was our sister organization, Empower Mississippi. And the two of our organizations, Mississippi Center for Public Policy and Empowerment Mississippi, were getting an award basically on behalf of Team Mississippi for income tax elimination. Our state is the first state to eliminate the income tax since oil-rich Alaska in 1980. Now, of course, Florida and Texas and Tennessee don't have the income tax, which is one of the reasons why they're doing so well. But we're the first state that had an income tax to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And it was great to get that recognition. And it was great for Mississippi to get that recognition. I should say, in the 2 minutes I had to accept the award, I think there are other people that actually should have been on stage. I think Starla Brown from AFP Mississippi, fantastic job. I praised Speaker Jason White. I didn't have time to mention everyone, but Speaker Jason White, his leadership made it possible. Trey Lamar, it wouldn't have happened without him. He really spearheaded the income tax elimination. And then, of course, we're standing on the shoulders of the guys who made the income tax reforms of 2022. And in a weird way, I think Philip Gunn should have been on stage. Trey Dellinger, I think his advisor should have been on stage. My good friend, Russ Latino, I think should have been on stage. So it was really Mississippi getting the award, but it was lovely to be up there and have that applause. And so often Mississippi is thought of as being 50th out of 50. And so often people think of Mississippi as being last. And it was lovely to be in a room full of people from across America seeing Mississippi actually leading and coming first.
Yeah, I agree. That was the takeaway I had from it as well, is that it's so neat to see Mississippi on a big stage like that, being recognized for efforts in this area. And, of course, there are a lot of people in that room that would love to accomplish what was accomplished here in elimination of the income tax. And what's always fascinating to me, Douglas, is you talk to folks that, again, think like we do and share a conservative philosophy and slate of conservative values. But, man, they're in states where it's really difficult to get stuff done in some of these deep blue states. It just won't happen.
I was talking to someone who runs a think tank in the Northeast, and forget it. I mean, they're trying to get people to reduce the size of government who believe passionately in big government. You imagine being a conservative in California. It's pretty difficult.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is how often it's a Southern success story. You see, and I don't want to, no disrespect to other think tanks in other states, but it tends to be the South that is leading on tax cuts, deregulation, doing all the right things. And of course, that's why I think we're seeing the South doing so well. But yeah, it's great to be part of it. Great group of people. State Policy Network, one of those organizations that we don't hear enough about, but actually does some incredibly important things right across the country.
And as you can see, you have great leadership involved as well in the State Policy Network. But big night for Mississippi, and congratulations to you. And you're right, there are a lot of other people that had a hand of ultimately getting that across the finish line, starting even back with the governor, Tate Reeves, when he championed as lieutenant governor, going to a flat tax, right?
And he made it his number one priority for the 2025 session. It wouldn't have happened without that. I mean, there's that old cliche that, success has many fathers, failure is an orphan. It's lovely to have lots and lots of people involved. It wouldn't have happened if any one of the coalition, from Tate Reeves to Philip Gunn, hadn't been pushing. It wouldn't have happened.
Totally true. So something that you guys have been focused on quite a bit, and a subject we've discussed often on the program. We may run out of time in this segment. We'll continue it on the other side of the break, and that is, of course, education freedom, school choice, that feels like it's getting some momentum. I mean, this is something that I know I've been working on for about a dozen years now to try to get something meaningful done. We've scratched the surface a bit with our dyslexia program and special needs programs, but we're still falling way short of universal school choice, which would be the ultimate goal. Tell us about that.
I think it's going to happen, and the reason I think it's going to happen is because Mississippi is now surrounded by states that have school choice. If we were having this conversation in Arkansas, Alabama, Louisiana, or Tennessee, you as a parent could write to the local school or the Department of Education and say, I want to have my child $7,000 paid into an education savings account. And that means you as the family could then allocate those dollars to a school of your choice. The very fact that we're starting to see that in all the states around us, I think means it's inevitable. It's going to come here. The question is, how can we do it? And how can we do it in a way that addresses some legitimate concerns that people have? But I think, Speaker White has put it top of the agenda, and I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, it feels like it. Certainly there were a conference that he held a couple of weeks ago, had a couple of folks from the Trump administration. The president is a big supporter of school choice. Of course, the education secretary, how refreshing, is working diligently to shut down the Department of Education. That's not something you see very often in politics, where a high-ranking bureaucrat, if you will, and I wouldn't call her a bureaucrat, but typically in that role, you're going to have bureaucrats that are all about protecting their fiefdoms and their domain. But she makes no bones about it. Yeah, I'm here to actually dismantle the Department of Education.
And it's worth remembering, the Department of Education was created at a federal level by Jimmy Carter. No conservative president, including Reagan, including the two Bushes, dared get rid of it until now. And it's wonderfully refreshing to see.
Yeah. So I think we're well on our way to getting something done. What that ultimately, finally will look like remains to be seen. But I agree. It feels like there's more interest and more support. I know I've had some private conversations with members of the legislature that are under the impression that there are lots of drawbacks to school choice, and that concerns them. But many of those, I think, are not grounded in fact. On the other side of the break, I'm going to let you address some of those. We've got Douglas Carswell. He's the president and CEO of the Mississippi Center for Public Policy in the Element Wealth studio. Coming right back.
Now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite! On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Here we stand, or here we fall. History won't care at all. Laying the bed like a lady. Lady Mercy won't be home tonight.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. We're visiting with Douglas Carswell. He's the president and CEO of the Mississippi Center for Public Policy. So on the C Spire text line, something we hear a lot, Douglas, but Mississippi hasn't eliminated the income tax. Well, we put the wheels in motion to do so. The legislation has been passed that will, in fact, eliminate the income tax over a period of time. I think it's being done responsibly and thoughtfully and methodically. We certainly could eliminate it on a shorter time frame, but honestly, that would likely necessitate increasing taxes, specifically the sales tax, which is a chief source of revenue of the state.
It's a fair point when someone says you haven't actually eliminated it yet. Yeah. That's right. We structured the proposal to eliminate it in a way, I mean, Mississippi has about $7 billion worth of tax revenue. About $2 billion of that comes from income tax. So if you're going to phase that out, get rid of the $2 billion out of the 7, you have to do it over time, unless you want to increase taxes elsewhere, by allowing for growth. And I think that's what we do. Up until 2030, the reduction will be in small increments of 0.25 percentage point, from 4% down to 3%. After 2030, it will be further reductions will be contingent upon there being a budget surplus. There are so-called tax triggers in there. Yeah. Now, the reason for that is we want to avoid what happened in Kansas, where a bunch of passionate conservatives got in and said, right, let's get rid of the tax. They got rid of the tax, and then what are we going to do to pay the bills? You've got to understand that, and you've got to create a system for phasing out the income tax that doesn't put you in hot water. And I think we've done that.
Yeah. I think it's overall is a good plan. Honestly, I would have been okay if we would have eliminated it in a shorter time frame. But that, honestly, I think would have required something that most people oppose, including me, which would probably be raising the sales taxes because that's our primary source of revenue.
Absolutely. It's going to take fiscal discipline, though. What we need are lawmakers who, I think for the first time in a long time, 2025 was actually a conservative budget. The growth in spending was sensible, in line with inflation. So what we need to do is make sure that we keep that fiscal discipline. If politicians go mad with the money, there won't be enough money for tax cuts. But if they keep to sensible spending controls, we will phase out the income tax within 7 to 8 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're in good shape there. So let's talk about school choice, return to that subject. I know that you guys appear to have made that a high priority. And, you know, there have been some false starts on that, shall we say, in terms of legislation. Last year had a universal school choice bill, I believe the year before, that we couldn't get out of the House. But we did have Representative Jansen Owen's bill, which would have established what's called open enrollment.
1435, yeah.
Right. I remembered as well. How could we forget that? Some bills you can remember the number because we talk about them so much, and they're so pivotal in their influence and their impact. But that's right, 1435. It would have essentially prohibited the homeschool when there is a request for a transfer to a different public school from blocking said transfer. It does require, under present law, approval by both the transfer-or school and the transfer-e school. But right now, more times than none, it rarely happens because they know, the transfer-or school is going to block it. His bill would have simply said, no, you can't do that anymore. That passed in the House. It failed. It didn't even get. It got pocket vetoed. Senator Dennis DeBar. We've talked about him many times. He's the committee chairman of education in the Senate. You think we could get at a minimum that done this year? Where does the Senate stand on that in your view?
I wonder if actually we should be more ambitious and go for full-on school choice. And the reason is because maybe the sticking point is so-called public-to-public school choice. Maybe that might be where we can compromise.
Okay.
But there are a number of stumbling blocks. Some people in the legislature object to school choice for illegitimate reasons, simply that they're terrified of their school superintendent giving them a hard time, and the school superintendent doesn't want to hand over control of the budget to the parents.
Right.
But there are some legitimate concerns. One legitimate concern is people saying, what about the Constitution? Well, that shouldn't be a legitimate concern anymore because it's quite clear that there's nothing in our Constitution to prohibit it. Another stumbling block is, well, what if you have school choice and you have a flood of kids coming into my kid's school district? Isn't that going to cause problems? Well, that's why we need to draft the legislation that says actually school districts need to be able to define capacity. School districts need to be able to say, we've got maximum capacity for this number of kids, we're prioritizing kids from our district, and that's that. And I would say you've got to go even further. You've got to give individual schools the power to reject transferees with a history of disciplinary problems. I think that's good conservative policy. But what is any of this got to do with someone currently in the public school system dissatisfied with the education their kids are getting, who says, give me my $7,000 so I can go to a non-government school? How can you possibly object to that on the grounds of capacity? So I would like us to come back to this and not just have public-to-public school choice with caveats for capacity. Allow people to take their money to any school of their choice. And I think, that's what they do in all the neighboring states. Why can't we do that here?
So, the objections there from the most typical one, the most common one is, well, I don't want to see public money being used to and transferred to a private entity. I don't want to see public money being used.
Do you say that with food stamps?
No, I agree. Well, not only that, but as you know, the public sector at all levels of government spends money with the private sector across a wide range of areas.
Think what giving every family in Hinds County control over their child's $7,000 would do to education in Hinds County. We have a number of schools in Hinds County which the local education authorities are constantly reviewing to see which ones they can shut down because no one wants to attend them. If you gave families control over their $7,000, I think you would see a flourishing of new providers. Schools like Redeemer School, schools like Vineyard Church's local school.
Yeah.
These would be start-up private schools offering the education that families wanted. Now, you can't have it both ways. You can't say there's nothing wrong with our public education system and it's all doing fine and dandy, and then turn around and say, hey, we can't let people have choice because they might want to escape from the system they've got. I wouldn't think that people in America would tolerate being told where they have to go and buy groceries based on their zip code. Why do we force them to go and get their kids send their kids to a public school without choice? It seems profoundly un-American to me.
That seems to be, again, the most frequent objection that I hear, including from the lieutenant governor, who's been known to say in the past that he just doesn't agree with the idea of public money being spent with private organizations, but they're providing a service.
Yeah, well, I look forward to him advocating that we phase out people using their food stamps in privately owned supermarkets. I mean, it's a nonsense argument. The real argument, I think, and I don't want to be a controversialist here, but I think the real argument is that if electorally you rely on the support of the teacher unions, you don't want to challenge them. But I think we've got to ask a fundamental question. If you are a Republican in Mississippi, are you on the side of parent power and Donald J. Trump, who want school choice? Or are you on the side of progressive teacher unions? Take your pick.
And you're right. That's the other thing that we can absolutely assert at this point, is that the president has made it very clear that he supports this policy
100%.
and believes it ought to be a policy implemented nationwide.
100%.
Right?
I went up in April and had conversations with Team Trump, and they're absolutely on board with this. Look at how outspoken they were in Tennessee and Texas. Trump was tweeting, sending out messages saying, back this bill. I think it's really interesting how Speaker White seems to have the ear and the inside track from the Trump's administration. Look at the level of support given to advocate for this just the other week in the Select Committee hearing. So I think it's pretty clear what Team Trump wants. But more important than Team Trump is, what do Mississippi parents want? They want the best for their kids. Right, okay, give them the ability to pick a different school for their kid.
So to those who say that having school choice implemented, even the basic open enrollment, would bring down property values, this is another argument that I think is not grounded in fact, and we haven't seen that in any state that's implemented school choice. But you hear that, and I guess their theory is, well, we would allow students in that wouldn't perform as well, and that would bring the grade of the school down, and that would affect.
Just look across the river at Arkansas, where they have school choice. None of these arguments have come to pass. The sky hasn't fallen in. In fact, there's good evidence now that schools in Arkansas are making real progress. If Arkansas can do it, if the Razorbacks... I've only been in Mississippi 5 years, but I've been here long enough to know that if the Razorbacks can do it, we can do it too.
That's absolutely true. And Ole Miss will be taking on the Razorbacks this coming Saturday, the Vaught.
I'm looking forward to it.
Douglas Carswell has been our guest, President and CEO of Mississippi Center for Public Policy. Good to talk to you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Gerard.
Yep.
Thanks.
We're stepping aside for a break. We're back with you in the Element Wealth studio.
From this Middays with Gerard Gibert. It is on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, Rhino just sent me a clip. What'd you say, 1992?
Yeah, April 9th, 1992 is when that clip first aired. That's 33 years and 5 months ago.
The Simpsons.
Yes, from The Simpsons.
You want to play it?
Sure.
Fired up.
I'll be back. You can't keep the Democrats out of the White House forever. And when they get in, I'm back on the streets with all my criminal buddies.
Well, I would say that the Simpson writers were very prescient, were they not?
The infamous feud between Sideshow Bob and Bart. But yeah, that was season 3 of The Simpsons. That was over 400 months ago. And it was already prevalent in the minds of society, so much so that The Simpsons could crack a joke about it. Yet here we are in the year of our Lord 2025, and the Democrats are still pushing to let criminals out on the streets so they can continue to terrorize you because they don't give a flying rat's rear end about you. They just care about power.
So true. It's so true. It's just astonishing to me. It's mind-boggling, as the saying goes. Just unbelievable and sad. In fact, the president just weighed in. He's condemning, quote, the lunatic, unquote, in the Charlotte stabbing. Heck, that's a nice word for that subhuman. The video is disturbing. I mean, it stops short of where it gets to the gore of a stabbing.
That's just what you've seen. The full video is out there.
Okay.
And it is
I haven't looked.
horrifying.
It's got to be. It's just unbelievable. And this young lady, Irina, I think her name was, right? 23, 24 years old. Her life ahead of her. Beautiful. Just unbelievable that the Democrats can defend that and that the mayor of Charlotte comes out with these callous comments. Is it any wonder that the criminals think that they can behave the way they do with impunity when they have the mayor of the city making comments like that? Oh, we've got to address the mental health and the homeless problem. And we can't, quote, arrest our way out of this. And as you said, you're right. You can't because it's a Linda Blair deal. They arrest them, book them, fingerprint them, boom, gone. Yep, she's right. What we need to do is lock their butts up for a long damn time. This is DeCarlos Brown, arrested at least 14 times, including for felony larceny, robbery with a dangerous weapon, has communicated numerous threats as well. Why is this person on the street?
He's on video after he attacked that girl saying, I got that white girl.
Unbelievable.
But will it be prosecuted as a hate crime? Statistically highly unlikely.
And we can't hold that as a racist comment, right? Because the Democrats tell us, no, there's no such thing as black versus white racism.
Yeah, the Democrats also say men can get pregnant. So maybe we should stop taking Democrats at their word because obviously their brains aren't functioning.
Man, oh man. It's a sad deal in this country. It really is. You know, I wish we could get back to just debating, I don't know, mundane, dry topics like tax policy. Shouldn't it be established that this is just bad and we all agree with that and we need to take appropriate action? We can't even agree on that when the mayor of Chicago says there's no crisis here. Having 150 guards at his disposal, security personnel protecting the mayor. 150. Why do you need 150, Mayor, if there's no crisis? You don't need anybody, right? You're not at risk walking the streets of your fair city there. That's sad. That really is. And I still maintain that all of this goes back to the dissolution of the nuclear family. I bet if you researched most of these thugs that commit these crimes, they come from broken homes, no homes. We still have a big problem in this country with out-of-wedlock births. Statistically, their chart in life is more difficult. They're more likely to end up living a life of crime, even at a very young age. And
you can't even blame it on the naivete of youth anymore because teenage pregnancy has declined.
That's absolutely true. Teenage births are down in this country, thank God. But out-of-wedlock births, down a little bit, but still, now we're starting to see where when that cycle began and we started to normalize it, maybe back in the 70s or so, we didn't frown on it the way we did prior to that generation. I think now we're dealing with multiple phases of it. And I think that's one of the things that has led to the widespread crime. And yeah, there's some data that would suggest that situation has improved, but should we ever rest? No, we shouldn't rest. Any of it is too much. So the president is slamming soft on crime policies in these blue cities, and he's right to do so. Look, this goes back to folks like this idiot in Chicago, Johnson. He just doesn't like the president. So that fogs any little bit of logic he may have in his brain to say, yeah, we got a problem here. We need to fix
he
it.
ain't got much to spare.
I agree. I know.
If you fog up too much of it, that's all of it.
I agree. Unbelievable. Let's see what else we got going on. Gary in the Berg says, thank you for discussing the college indoctrination issue. It matters a lot. And also speaking to college groups like at Ole Miss. Y'all do a great job at SuperTalk and keep it up. Now play some Leonard Skinner. 3 steps for some bump music.
I'll play Don't Ask Me No Questions. I've played 3 steps more recently, and Don't Ask Me No Questions needed to get played or it was going to get deleted.
Appreciate the remarks and the feedback there, Gary. Yeah, I will tell you, I will always clear my calendar and make arrangements anytime I have the privilege of addressing young people. And I just confirmed on the break with my contact. And, when he says, looking forward to it with a double exclamation marks, I mean, that fires me up. That energizes me that they're willing to allow an old guy like me to stand in front of them and speak. And like I said, I'm going to make it interactive. I want to ask some questions. And I hope this is happening in the classrooms on our college campuses, but I'm going to throw out some meaty issues and without offering my opinion on them, just see what they think about it. And
you know why the media and the left have reacted so they've become so agitated that the Charlotte stories gained life.
What's that?
Because it's 2 weeks old. They thought they were done with it. The ones that were aware of it were like, oh, phew.
Yeah, you're right.
They didn't get that one.
Yeah, you're totally right about that.
That's why they've been so indignant. They thought they'd gotten away with it.
Yeah, and that's a shame. That really is. And again, because it just doesn't check the boxes, right, that necessary for them, because unfortunately of the races involved, of the parties in the crime. A white female victim, a male criminal, perpetrator, black male. That just doesn't fit the narrative. Therefore, we're not going to report it. That's just sad. That really is. And here's the problem. All you're doing is ensuring that it continues. You might be able to influence it and impact the situation a little bit if you just report on it and expose it. But you won't, because you're so immersed and you're so adherent to that narrative. You've made the whole party about that. Honestly, that's their entire agenda is wrapped up with that crap.
It has been for generations.
I know it has been. What's kind of new is the gender ideology stuff. Seems like that just came out of nowhere the last 3 or 4 years, and now they're completely infested with that, and they worship that stuff. I mean, they really do. It's just sick. It's crazy.
Well, the left loves their useful idiots.
I hate it, man. The Thomas and Greenwood sent us something, a post from Elon Musk. Actually, it was reposted on X, Twitter, by Elon Musk.
Commented.
Yeah, I see that. I see it now. Yep, Musk commented. Right. But this came from American AF. Is that Wyatt Stagg? Am I reading that right? The name of the individual? Says, white people have a simple choice to make. 1, be conquered, enslaved, raped, and genocide while being called racist. 2, reclaim our nations and our dignity while being called racist. It's that simple. Right, no matter what, I think the point is, you're going to be called racist. You might as well do the right thing and improve the situation. and take the heat for being called a racist, who you really shouldn't care about because it's not about being racist. It's just plain old common sense.
Because they never read Chicken Little.
Coming right back. Stay with us.
Polly up of Mississippi.
You know what that means. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
We'll do it live.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
So this just in, the MacArthur Foundation, that's a far left-wing non-governmental organization, NGO, gave Mecklenburg County, that is the county where Charlotte is situated, a $3.3 million grant to help, quote, reduce the jail population. Well, before I go further, why do you got to give money for that? What is? Okay, here's $100,000. Take that person out of jail. What's that all about? What do you need money for that for? I don't get it. You got to pay to reduce the jail population? What are you, bribing judges or something? What's going on? So it turns out that this person that was released from jail 14 times that committed this murder may have been because of the money that this MacArthur Foundation provided to reduce the jail population. The county plans to implement, I'm reading from the MacArthur Foundation's website. The county plans to implement strategies aimed at addressing system inefficiencies, enhancing existing services, providing non-jail alternatives for defendants. Non-jail alternatives. No, this is a murderous thug. Lock his ass up and don't let him out. This will include enhancing services provided to defendants pre-trial. That's exactly what they're doing. They're paying lawyers, is what they're doing, to go argue in front of a judge that this person needs to be released. Implementing more meaningful first appearance hearings and improving case processing. And partnering with residents to identify and implement community-led programs and policy interventions. What really aggravates me about that is using all this fancy language, the word I looked up a few years ago, grandiloquent language. Why don't you just be honest and tell the truth here? You want to pay money to let the black people out of jail. That's what you're about. You think you're somehow engaging in anti-racism. That's what this is all about. That's what is at the core of this. And so they're paying lawyers to go argue. Yeah, this person that's been in jail 14 times needs to be released. And not long after that, they go kill somebody in broad daylight. Unbelievable. You got blood on your hands, MacArthur Foundation.
I think there's an argument to be made that the judges that let them out also have blood on their hands, but they've granted themselves judicial immunity.
I agree.
Because, I mean, if you're a bartender and you overserve somebody and they go kill somebody in a DUI wreck, you're held responsible.
Totally agree. So, Thomas Greenwood says, why don't we advocate for judges who grant parole? It's really not so much parole, but in this case, just releasing them to be civilly liable. I don't know that I could get on board with that. I think what's more important, and I would just hope that we can get there, is can we just populate the benches across this country with people who aren't ideologues, who don't think that they're advancing some sort of twisted radical ideology? You're shaking your head, no, we can't do that.
No, because half the population's ate up with idiocy.
That's just a shame. That's the way it's supposed to be. Whatever happened to the concept of blind justice with equal treatment under the law? Doesn't matter what your race or all your other attributes
since the
are.
Obama years that being colorblind is actually being racist. So being blind justice is actually probably considered racist.
That's probably true. Well, that's just sad. That really is. Man, oh man.
All because they don't want to face the statistical realities.
It's just bad. You're right. They don't want to face the statistical realities because they'll tell you that those statistics are flawed. They're inaccurate. Yet they'll buy into all kinds of other goofy statistics, such as those that come from the Labor Department, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You saw that? They revised downward this morning, just a couple hours or so ago. The data, the employment data for the Biden period, from 2024, March 24 to March 2025. That's essentially the Biden economy. Basically said, yeah, we got it wrong by 911,000. Another
more than half the jobs reported did not exist.
Didn't exist. And honestly, I know a lot of people will say, yeah, it was manipulated due to politics. No, I think it's just ineptitude. I really do. I've said before, I have zero confidence in the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And
the federal government's inept.
It needs to be cleaned up. I think the president's taking action to do so. I look forward to some more accurate data. Time for Fox News, SuperTalk News, then Senator Jeremy England.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. Hello? You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 3 of Middays. We're coming at you live from the Element Wealth Studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now Jeremy England. He's a Mississippi State Senator, serves District 51, and also is the chair of the Elections Committee, vice chair, Ports and Marine Resources Committee. Senator, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you, Gerard. Thanks for having me. And let me say, go Dogs before we get started. What a game this weekend.
It was quite the game. We talked about it
That's right.
A good bit yesterday. And, of course, I had to endure all my friends on the golf course, all good guys, Sunday, sporting their Mississippi State regalia, of course.
That's right. I bet there's a lot more maroon and a lot more churches around Mississippi on Sunday.
That's right. A lot of fun, though.
That's right.
Football's looking good here in the state of Mississippi. But let's talk a little politics and political policy. Mm-hmm. You may have caught our interview with Douglas Carswell from Mississippi Center for Public Policy. Of course, MCPP and Empower Mississippi, two leading policy advocacy organizations in the state, recently recognized at the State Policy Network for their work in eliminating the income tax.
Right.
They got recognized for that. But something that both organizations, as well as Americans for Prosperity, another policy advocate in the state, are working hard towards is education choice, universal education choice, being the goal. There have been some kind of false starts on that, shall we say. Haven't been able to get much across the finish line to this point. The Speaker has made that a priority, so it sounds like the Senate's going to have some work to do on this matter as well. Where do you stand, and what do you think?
That's right. Well, look, Gerard, I've always been a fan of more parental choice when it comes to education of kids. And look, I don't pretend to speak on behalf of the Senate here. I'm
sure
one man there, but I do know that we're talking about it, and I can say that Lieutenant Governor's looking at a lot of things, and we know it's coming. We know there's a bill that the House is going to send to us. We don't have it yet, but of course they don't have it put together yet, and I'm sure, look, they've got a lot of smart folks over there. Speaker White, Representative Roberson, a lot of smart guys are going to be looking at that issue, and they're going to send us a bill. I hope that we have one that we will send as well that looks at some things that we can do that gives more choice to parents when it comes to education of kids. So we'll see how that goes. Definitely going to be the topic of this session, it seems like.
Seems like it. I mean, I think whereas last session it was mostly focused on tax reform, and that was something driven by the Speaker and to a great extent the Governor, this one is kind of poised to look like one where education choice will dominate the discussion under the dome there in the Capitol. And, of course, as you well know, and you've been following this issue for quite some time, there are all sorts of different aspects of education choice. There's not like a blueprint that says, hey, boom, this is education choice.
Right.
And the states that have implemented, there are nuances among the states of how they've implemented those programs.
That's right. I mean, that's why we call the states laboratories of democracy, right? We can see what works in other states and what doesn't. And I can tell you one thing that I'm proud that we have done here. You know, we all know about the Mississippi Miracle now, and I know that everybody that comes on the show says, look, when we go to these conferences, legislative conferences, people are asking us, hey, what are you doing? And that's not usual, and that is happening. So, look, we've gone from 50th to 16th, so we're obviously doing something right, and we're seeing other states surrounding us start to move towards this universal school choice, move towards that, and there is going to be some pull towards doing that. But I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that we're doing something right currently.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we're acting perfectly. Because I certainly think having more competition with our school system, competition is always a good thing.
Yeah.
More choice is always a good thing. So we're going to see some things happen, but I don't know that you'll see us make that huge jump that maybe these other states are doing towards just going straight towards universal school choice, all in one big leap and one big bill. Because of the things that we're seeing that we're doing that are working.
Okay. Well, as you know, Representative Jansen Owen introduced legislation last year that did pass in the House, HB 1435, and that just would have prohibited the homeschool district from blocking a transfer if requested by a student to enroll in a different public school. And unfortunately, that didn't even get brought up in Senator DeBar's committee.
Right. Well, I guess so. That was last session.
Yeah.
I guess you said. Well, look, last session was the income tax session. We had a lot of things that kind of didn't make it onto the floor because of other things and other reasons, and that's just politics. That's the way that legislation works. But I do know that a lot of senators are in favor of that. You know, that
Okay.
one issue that don't the school that the student is leaving from. You said homeschool. I don't want people to think that we're talking about homeschooling, but the school that the student is leaving should not be able to block that student from or that parent from making the choice to put them in a different school. Now, the receiving school is another issue because you've got to look at capacity and things like that. And those are all things we're talking about. These are all very complex issues.
They are.
And we're looking at them. I heard you mention with Douglas Carswell, I was listening in, and we talked about the tax values and whatnot. I don't think, I agree with what you guys said, that the tax value is not going to go down because we have school choice. If anything, I think we could see it go up.
Yeah.
But the problem that I think a lot of constituents have is this local option where your local taxes are paying for a portion of your schools, and then you get a student coming in from an area where either the taxes aren't the same or it's a lower income area, so they're coming in. So there is a little bit of a subsidized issue there where these students coming from a lower paying district are coming in. But I think some schools, look, there's a way around that. Schools are starting to, they'll charge, the increase in from whatever
like
area they come from, like a tuition kind of thing. So there's ways around that. But again, this is a very complex issue that a lot of this is going to get debated this year. And I doubt the first bill that you see from the House or from the Senate is going to be what the final product is. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah, and as you know, Representative Jansen Owen's bill actually have like $5 million appropriated that would be available to those schools who would receive incoming students to cover that local cost because their local taxes stay with the district where they live.
That's right. And those are still, look, anytime we put money anywhere, that's still tax dollars, right? That's still the state putting in money for another group. And we'll need to look at that. I mean, look, we did just eliminate the income tax. So we've got to start looking at, these $5 million, $10 million we're spending here and there. We've got to start looking at that because that's additional money. Whereas, if we're going to be true to this income tax cut, we do need to start being a little more frugal with things. So again, complex issues, but I look forward to it during the session, pre-session. I look forward to all the hearings we're going to have on it because I do have a good feeling about us moving in the right direction to give parents more choice. Empower
Mississippi just released a report this morning that shows the cost of private school across the state of Mississippi. And, of course, we spend about $6,900 per student from state appropriations. That's what goes out to the district. And there's some adjustments to that based on the recently enacted school funding bill. But in general, the baseline is $6,800. And in a school choice program, typically that's what's made available to the parents, the students, to direct those funds to the setting of their choice. But what this research found out is that the average for private school in the state of Mississippi is about $6,700 for elementary students, up to $7,240 for high school students. And those are somewhat skewed because the private schools in the Jackson area, many have a tuition that exceeds $15,000 a year. It's expensive. But here's the biggest finding to me is that more than half the private schools in Mississippi have a tuition that's less than the amount we are appropriating per student to attend a public school. And so if they could have access to those funds, they would have access to more than half the private schools. Well, and look, that's great that we have affordable private schools. But Gerard, one thing I worry about, and you know this as a conservative as well as I do, if the government starts putting money into something, it tends to make it more expensive. And that could happen. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's one concern that I have with that. I don't have any problem with public funding going to private schools, mainly because, like I said, we don't do that with Medicaid. You know, we don't make you go to it doesn't happen with food stamps like you talked about earlier. So that's not really the issue. The issue is that when you look at those, healthcare has increased tremendously, the cost of healthcare, because the government started putting money into it, and the same thing with food, the same thing with education, college education, things like that. So we could end up seeing that become less affordable because we're not. And then you also have the ties that come with federal or with federal or with state money, So and I have talked with some private school folks that are worried about that. But if you'll allow me just for a second, I want to shift to some other, not still within education, but I want to shift to a thought that I have on it, which is more special purpose schools like dyslexia, like autism, things like that. And I know we've got to talk about it on the other side of the break.
Absolutely.
Senator Jeremy England is our guest in the Element Well studio. Coming right back.
Someone to talk to. Lay down, Sally. There's no leave to leave so soon. I've been trying all night long just to talk to you.
In Mississippi.
It's so awesome!
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Yes, the great David Bowie bumping us into this segment here of Middays. It's Senator Jeremy England in the Element Well studio. So you were sharing with me on the break there, Senator, some interesting data concerning dyslexia.
Yes, and Gerard, what made me think about this was your section before, the part before I came on where you were talking about people going to prison and doing that. I know of stats that other states have done where they've looked at their prison population, and up to 50% of prison populations are dyslexics. They have dyslexia. But I also know that 50% of our NASA scientists are dyslexics. They have dyslexia. So these are typically high IQ people. And we're seeing folks in Mississippi that aren't being remediated properly, learning how to read. If they've got an IEP, they'll be given a waiver through a third grade reading gate. They get to the fourth grade. If they still can't read, it's easy to imagine these children just being either labeled stupid or lazy or troublemaker or whatever, and they get on a path. And again, we have 50% of our prison population that way. If they get on the right path, they could end up being a rocket scientist because again, they have high IQs. And I've heard dyslexia referred to as the disability of the privileged for that reason, because it costs money to do that. But if we're going to see some school choice at the bare minimum this year, I hope we see some sort of program where we're helping special purpose schools like that can start addressing that issue in Mississippi. Because if in the long run, this isn't going to happen immediately, but in the long run, we could start seeing the money we're putting into corrections turn around and go right back towards education and be much better spent on helping these kids make something out of themselves. That's going to change generations. And look, that's a parental choice that I know that a lot of parents want. I have a Lighthouse Dyslexia School down in Ocean Springs. There are children coming from Wiggins, Picayune, other places to go to that school, and these children are so excited to get up and go to school in the morning. Like they're dragging their parents out of the house. Hey, you've got to get me to school on time. They're just so excited to get there and be able to read. And seeing that, and also knowing that 1 out of every 4 to 1 out of every 5 children have dyslexia. My daughter was just recently diagnosed with dyslexia, and so we're just missing those kids, and I hate that they have that issue and that we're not taking care of it. Well, if those parents were given tax dollars to help them get into that special purpose school, or if you saw those, if we allowed those tax dollars, you would start seeing those special purpose schools pop up in more areas because they become more affordable. You have more parents that can afford to send their kids there, and man, you talk about something that's generationally changing. That would be a win for us this year if we did nothing else.
Yeah. It makes sense to me totally. On the C Spire text line, I worry you would see a ton of pop-up schools run by scam artists looking to make a quick buck with zero oversight. And I'll respond to that, didn't let you do it. But that's the market speaks, right? So if the parents don't feel like that their children are being properly served with a good quality education, they won't go. As simple as that. We don't have to have the government get involved in that.
That's right. That's competition. If you're not putting out a good product, you're not going to last.
Yeah, I mean, scam artists, you may get away with it for a short period of time. That's even doubtful. I think most people, before they signed up to enroll their kid, they're going to want to see some sort of track record, some sort of evidence that this would be a good fit for their kids, and that whomever is organizing these schools has a resume that indicates that they've done that successfully in the past. So,
right.
I mean, I think that's what most people are looking for. So again,
Absolutely.
we don't need government getting involved. And honestly, who's losing there? Who's losing is the person who's taking their money to put into that education.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, look, it's on consumers, and you would be a consumer at that point in time.
Yeah.
You're using the money that the state's giving you. Put on the consumers can vet that properly.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there would be some accreditation. We have it in all issues. I mean, even homeschool parents have to make sure they're passing kids. But I tell you what, there's some homeschool parents in my area that are producing some of the smartest kids I've ever seen that end up going to college, and they're taking courses that are well advanced way early on. So you would see way more good come out of this than to worry about the scams out there.
And I would not support, you may have a different take on it, I wouldn't support attaching any sort of government requirements imposed on the current private schools. Right. If they were to avail themselves of students that were using an ESA.
That's right. Look, I certainly wouldn't support it.
Yeah. Okay.
But I just know that, look, politics waxes and wanes, and it just tends to happen.
I get it. Right. I think we need less government intervention in that, honestly, and let's consumerize education.
Absolutely.
Essentially, is what we're doing, and
That's right.
letting the market speak in this regard.
It works.
Let's talk about some other things that you might have in the job jar and on the radar coming up this session, which is a short 4 months away. There have been lots of discussions down at the Capitol, certainly on the House side, about the public employees retirement system. I know you've been involved in that as well. You've offered some thoughts on that. Your colleague, Senator Daniel Sparks, been heavily involved in that. What do you think we may see this coming session in regard to PERS?
Yeah, look, and yes, you're right. Daniel Sparks, Senator Sparks, has been a tremendous asset for the senators on that, and for the whole legislature and the whole state of Mississippi, because he's done some hard work on that. He's done his homework on that. And look, I think Representative Lee Yancey, I heard talking about this recently too. So he's stepping out there. And look, that's an issue that's a tough one for us to step out on, because anytime you mention PERS, the folks that are either already retired or already in the system, they think automatically, oh, they're going to take our benefits away.
Yeah.
Well, now what we're hearing is we've created this new Tier 5, which increases the age of retirement. So now we're starting to hear from policemen and firemen, and they're saying, oh, well, we're losing this recruitment tool. We're not able to do this. And I've had those conversations. Look, it's tough to have conversations on social media because you really can't debate on social media. People are just trying to score points. And I've asked people, look, call me and let's talk about this. And what I tell them when I talk to them is, look, this is a floor. This is we started this tier at the bare minimum, which what we need to do, which I wish others do. We can always come back and add to it. Yeah. Cities and counties can buy back into it and do more that way if they want to do that. But the other thing that's getting missed is it's a hybrid defined contribution / defined benefit plan. The defined contribution part of the plan, if somebody leaves, they get to take that money and roll it over just like any other employee does. And the fact of the matter is, folks in the younger generation just aren't starting a job at 18 and 20 and working until they're 50 even, or 60. They're leaving after 5 years or 20 or 10 years, and they can take that with them. That's a part of that they can bring with them, and that's a recruiting tool.
So that does open that door up, but it has been met with certainly lots of concern, especially in the law enforcement community.
That's right, and there should be concern. I mean, look, we're dealing with the benefit that they have. That group is, look, they're heroes. We don't just call them that to say it. I don't want it to become cliche. They're first responders. They're the ones we want out there doing things, and so we listen to them, and we need to listen to them. But I use the analogy like on the border when President Trump came in, he knew we had an issue with immigration. We had something we couldn't afford, which is what this PERS system is becoming with $26 billion in liability. He came in and said, hey, look, we're going to address that, but we first have to shut the border down. And we were essentially dumping water into a bucket with holes in it until we came in and did something. So we plugged the holes. We can always come back and do more, as I said. But I also think that we'll see one-time money be put into the system. And I tend to agree with Senator Sparks and Representative Yancey and a few others that want to put, if we can, put $500 million in up front and let that start building interest and moving that unfunded liability down the line, because we have a system that was set up when I wasn't even in the legislature, and it's just not affordable. And so we're trying to make sure we uphold those obligations we already have, but make it something that's going to be sustainable down the line.
And as you know, what they're calling for is a steady stream of income somehow from some source dedicated to the PERS fund. Mm-hmm. That has not been able to get through the legislature at this point, but maybe that'll be discussed again.
Well, that's tough, and it will. And I heard somebody mention recreational marijuana, and I said, well, you're obviously not vetting that through the Police Officers Association on that one, or the firemen, probably. I heard mobile sports betting. Look, there's things out there that we could try to do, but if it's not a significant amount of money, it's a drop in a bucket that gets eaten up within year one. We need something that's going to bear interest and help us on down the line.
Yeah, in a hurry. So we'll certainly see where that goes. What do you have going on the Elections Committee, and what about the ballot initiative? Might we see any action there?
I think so, Gerard. And look, I've got a bill that I've looked at the last couple of years on the ballot initiative. I am planning on working on that this year and seeing what we can move. It's not going to be exactly what we had. It will be a little bit tougher, but it's not going to be impossible. And the reason it's going to be tougher is because of the changing atmosphere that we have around us with social media, with the ability to get petitions signed. Back whenever this was first set up, you had people just sitting out in front of their grocery stores and the Kroger getting signature signs. Well, now we're able to dump a bunch of money into something and get it done. I think we will see something this year to move Mississippi back towards having a ballot initiative.
Okay.
I hope so anyways. I will work on it. I think that's something that the people are looking forward to having again in Mississippi.
Before we go, do you hear that from your constituents? Do they talk to you about that as an issue?
I hear it from some. Some are concerned about the issues we would see dumped onto the ballot. They don't think there's a ton of Republican issues out there.
Okay.
But there's some issues. Look, if we had a ballot initiative that did not allow things that deprived anyone of life, liberty, or property,
Okay.
Why not that?
Makes sense.
We'll see it.
Yep. Appreciate you coming in, Senator.
Thank you, Gerard.
Yep. Senator Jeremy England has been our guest. He represents District 51 on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We're coming right back with half an hour of Middays. Stay with us.
Interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge news. Huge news. Huge. You need to listen to this.
Middays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
So it turns out that maybe some of the residents of some countries understand that this system of communism, socialism, that the Democrats in this country would like to implement, starting with the nation's largest city, poised to elect a communist as their mayor. Well, these folks in these other countries, they figured it out. Please tell them what you just sent me on Twitter. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, there seems to be a full-blown revolution taking place in the country of Nepal. Nepal tried to implement, the communist government of Nepal tried to implement heavy censorship and a banning of all social media, including and up to turning off the internet. So, a bunch of protesters took to the streets, and it has gotten violent.
I mean, that video you sent me is...
Oh, yeah, they chased the finance minister through the streets, pushed him in the river, stripped him of his clothes. Now there's video going around where he's literally being carried down the street by his arms and legs and nothing but his underwear with what looks like a bag or a mask or something over his head. Doesn't look good for him. There's another video of them climbing up the flagpole at the Communist Party headquarters, tearing down the hammer and sickle flag. There's another one of the upper floors of a high-rise building on fire, and the claim is that is the head state media building.
So
they've set fire to the prime minister, I believe, is their form of government, their prime minister's residence.
Right. So let me get this straight. The people of Nepal are storming the communist headquarters building to take down the communist hammer and sickle flag. Here they want to raise it. They're embracing it because they're not having to live under the same conditions and circumstances that the people of Nepal have, having been oppressed by the communist system. And they said enough. They're taking matters into their own hands. These people over here, like I've said so many times, that are bathed in incumbency. They don't want or wish for their next meal or a roof over their head. Yet they support systems that, in fact, would produce such outcomes. I don't know how to describe it other than just being stupid and ignorant. That's what it is. You're just ignoring reality here.
Yeah,
really
the communists
incredible.
have been in charge in Nepal since 2006, it looks like.
Unbelievable.
They came to power after a 10-year civil war.
But they've said enough.
At the end of the monarchy.
So this just happened 21 minutes ago. An illegal alien who was released once again into this country by Joe Biden murdered a man in Houston while drunk, driving without a driver's license, and then ran from the scene. Incredible. Get their butts out. I don't know what else to say. This is on you, Joe Biden and Democrats. And what's really sick is that they feel good about it. They get some sort of perverse satisfaction. We opened up the border to let these people in. Just incredible. Here's another report I'm looking at. This is, I can't really tell the city at this point. This video just crossed over. Oh, this is from a couple of years ago. The average homicide suspect has been arrested 11 times. This is a chief of police. I think it's Columbus, if I'm not mistaken, or Ohio. I could be wrong. The average homicide suspect has been arrested 11 times prior to them committing a homicide. That is a problem. That is a problem. We need to keep violent people in jail. Yeah, agree. Unbelievable. It's just common sense here.
There is seemingly one Democrat senator with, it seems, some semblance of common sense, even though I doubt his voting record will reflect it. But here's what John Fetterman had to say about socialism.
I literally was in a former communist nation. And I asked that. I said, some people in my party, some of the lefties are talking about socialism now. What do you think? He's like, that's the worst thing ever. You're going to need a reality check if you ever adopt any of those things. You know, like you are morons.
God, dog. By the way, this video I'm watching who said we need to keep violent people in jail, the chief of police of Washington, D.C. in 2023 had that figured out then. But the Democrats ignore it, don't want to hear it.
The crime statistics have not changed all that much from the 90s when you look at repeat offenders.
That's true.
The vast majority of all crimes are committed by those that have been arrested 3 times or more.
So it just feels like
it's where the 3 strikes concept came from.
With a concerted effort and a desire, an intent, and a plan, we really could clean up a lot of this crap, could we not?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a tiny part of the population. They just wreak a lot of havoc. And it is often the same people. Recidivism. Over and over. And the most frustrated people in our country over that? Law enforcement. Oh, gosh. Got to go arrest the same dead-gum person. Over and over again, knowing that the system will not back them. And all these Georgia Soros-based DAs, etc., are just going to let them out. We've been witnessing this over and over again. Man, oh man. Maybe things will turn around now that the president has brought attention to this and is in the efforts in D.C. have proven to bear fruit. But I don't know. You got the mayor of Chicago, of course, as we said, that doesn't seem to be on board with it. They're still drinking from the Democrat
How did they manage to
Kool-Aid.
elect someone even dumber and more radical than Lori Lightfoot?
Boy, that is true. Who would have thought? Yeah, she, of course, during the COVID era said, I'm on TV a lot. I got to get coiffed. Remember when nobody else could go to the barber or the stylist? God dang. You know, I always, as a person who just enjoys music, I always think about lyrics and songs and how they relate to life and how just on the mark they are. But I think about Elton John's song, Empty Garden, was about the senseless murder, assassination of John Lennon. And there's a statement in there that just so perfectly applies. There's in the lyric, I should say, a line in the lyrics. It's funny how one insect can damage so much grain. That's the lyrics from Empty Garden. And he, of course, in the song refers to John Lennon as the gardener. Cared a lot, weeded out the tears, and grew a good crop. Now it looks all strange. It's funny how one insect can damage so much grain. Doesn't that kind of apply here when you look at these people that have been arrested multiple times, committed crime, led a life of crime? They just keep getting released and go do it again and do it again and do it again. And it sort of builds up. And the next thing you know, they murder somebody. And it does feel like, based on all the recidivism data, just a little effort to lock up these truly bad people and keep them locked up, as this chief of police, Chief Conte, said in Washington, D.C. in 23. Lock them up and keep them there.
But that hurts weak-willed loser Democrats' feelings.
Oh, man. Well, I'm going to tell you, we cannot have a thriving, prosperous, not that I'm telling you anything you don't know, vibrant society, safe society, if we make all of our policies laws and take all of our actions based on stupid feelings. And I know that's the point you make every time you say that, and you're so right. And it's selfish, because they're more worried about their feelings than they are protecting American citizens. They're literally more concerned about their feelings than human life.
Because if Democrat politicians hurt too many feelings, they don't get elected, and they don't get to maintain their hold on power.
We've conferred to, I've said it a million times, we have placed too much power in political office. We need to be stripping some power. And you know, the founders warned about this. They were so right a long time ago. A bunch of today, we call them kids. They were all in their 20s and 30s that understood this. Hadn't been on the earth very long to have that kind of wisdom. That's how fortunate we are to be in this country. I know something that gets lost, that these people came together, these men came together. We're coming right back with the final segment.
Gerard Gibert. Going beyond the headlines, breaking down the stories that matter to Mississippi. Middays with Gerard on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Flock of Seagulls. Hadn't heard that one in a while. That's some 80s music there. Good stuff. Appreciate that, Rhino. So, back with you in the Element Well studio. CC in Senatobia says Democrats don't want a thriving country. They want chaos and destruction. They love to scream and cry and complain. The Democrats are obviously bought and paid for by parties that want to destroy our country, says Mark in Tupelo. Let's see. Worthy of discussion. What are the common denominators of a low-performing school, says Gary in the Berg. Right at the top of the list would be a very high percentage of single-parent families. Some single parents do a great job, but most don't have a chance. As an example, look at JPS. Yeah, I know that's something you've crusaded on quite a bit, Gary. We have too, and agree. I don't know that there's anything that can be done legislatively to address that issue. That's just a societal, a cultural issue that I believe needs to be addressed by community leaders, and including faith-based leaders. I think they need to be sending a message. It's a huge problem that has festered and become even larger through the years. And as Rhino said, teenage pregnancies are down, which is a good thing, but out-of-wedlock births are still off the charts in this state and in this country. And what even exacerbates it further in Mississippi is we have a lot of out-of-wedlock births to Medicaid. And what that means is that you've basically got an impoverished mother that's bringing a child into the world. That doesn't mean that they can't provide for them, make for a nurturing home life. Sure, but it's a whole lot harder, let's just be honest, when you're poor. And it probably didn't make sense at that point in your life to start a family. I don't want government dictating that to anyone, but maybe a little education. Do we teach that in the schools by any stretch, Rhino? Do we counsel kids when they are in high school about, hey, when you get ready to start a family, just remember maybe you need to think about having this, that, and the other in place? But in the state of Mississippi, 57% of the babies are born to Medicaid. 57%. In the country, it's 41%. That's a sobering statistic nationally. But it's especially concerning when you think that nearly 2 out of every 3 are born to Medicaid, meaning the mother qualified for it. Pregnant mom, one of the traditional coverage groups, been around since the 60s, but they have to have an income below, it's usually 150% or so. It varies from state to state, but it's in that neighborhood of the federal poverty level, meaning you are having a hard time making ends meet on your own. Many aren't employed at all, as you know, don't have any income, but they still qualify for the benefits. So I agree, Gary, that would go a long way toward addressing the core problem of poor performance in our school, of crime, and just other negative outcomes that one can experience and incur in their life. But that can't come from government, in my view. And government needs to be aware of it, needs to think about engaging communities so that they can deliver that message. But, Rhino, you even talk about it, man. You get excoriated just talking about it. There are people out there listening to me right now that are just getting mad, guarantee you, and suggesting that I'm being a racist and talking about it. But what have I said that isn't the truth? Nothing. But as you well know, they don't want to deal with...
If the truth hurts your feelings, then the truth is evil.
That's exactly right. We're back to that again, that everything is rooted and grounded in feelings,
because the majority of the Democrat Party is made up by crazy people.
Well, that's why the problems fester and persist, because we can't acknowledge the core cause of the problem. And if you can't acknowledge the core cause, then you're likely not to solve it. Let's start working on solutions that would actually benefit the very people. That's what's really sad about it. The very people you claim to be champions for are suffering because of your bad policies.
They don't really give a rip. They just want power.
I hate it. I really do. But I'm afraid you're so right. We're out of time here today. I'm headed up to Oxford tonight to speak to the young folks. Can't wait. Back with you again tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.